Hey guys and gals, I'm Logan Freeman, and this is the LiveFree Investors Podcast, where badass people share investment advice so you too can live free. Today I'm talking to Andy Talbert. Andy, first off, you're the first person that I've actually cussed with on the podcast, and so boom, there you go, right off the cuff, because you are a badass guest. So in a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do, man.
So I work to create opportunities in the real estate space for investors, high net worth individuals, family offices, anyone in the industry, basically, by creating new real estate assets, mostly in the residential multifamily space.
Creating new assets. Tell me about that, man. What's the business model?
The business model is quite simply, we focus really on new construction, ground up development. So we're not value add players in that sense of what the traditional kind of definition of it is. Our value add would be to buy a piece of ground in a market that we really believe in, and to go through the whole process, potentially of entitlement, through planning and zoning, through selecting a general contractor, all the way to completion, lease up, and then potentially exit as well, obviously, if it comes down to making sense to buy or to sell rather on a cap rate.
Absolutely, man. And what markets are you playing in right now?
So I'm based in Miami, Florida, but as you know, Logan, I have Kansas City roots. So we still do a lot in Overland Park, Kansas, which is one of kind of our favorite submarkets, if you will. Not as well known across the country, but fantastic markets.
Yeah.
A lot of growth, a lot of high income, six-figure plus, income levels all around you in that area. So we like to play off that market. In Florida specifically, over the last year, we've really been chasing Orlando hard. So we've got a few hundred doors that are in the pipeline there, 300 to 500 doors actually. So that's a market we very much believe in.
Awesome.
It's a little bit contrarian because of the fact that obviously we're kind of in the middle of COVID and the pandemic and everything, and we're not sure where that'll go. And Disney and a lot of the tourism that's driven by Orlando is dependent on that. I like to tell people though, long term, I don't want to bet against two things: the United States of America, its economy, and Disney. I think those are two interrelated in some way. So we like the idea of being able to pick up assets, put them in the pipeline, and know at the end of the day, it'll take 2 years, 2.5 years to build some of these things. So if we're still in this mode of kind of hunkered down, quarantine 2.5 years from now, we probably have bigger problems than, my real estate deals.
Sure. Yeah. Well, speaking from a parent of 2 young kids, and one that absolutely is obsessed with everything Disney. I love that bet. I love that bet.
North Central Florida has been a great growth market for a long, long time. And we look at, again, the demographics of things, where people are going, where there are jobs. There's places we bet on, and there's places by definition that we bet against because of that.
Absolutely. Traditionally, it's difficult to find cash flowing deals in what I call JOCO, the land of no cash flow. Because it's difficult, because it's so nice, and you guys are creating. I've toured those. I've been with you on many of those tours, and I just love the model. So thank you for sharing that, man. What's the best thing about being an investor and a business owner?
I think the opportunity to go with maybe the theme here of the show, which I'm not doing that just because of the show, but to be able to create that freedom to create things, I think from scratch is very, very appealing. I mean, I worked in corporate America for over a decade. I wasn't an entrepreneur at 20 or 21 years of age per se. I mean, I came into my, starting companies in my 30s, and I've been doing it just over a decade now. And at the end of the day, like, there's no part of a business that someone's going to come down and say, "Hey, Andy, that's not your part of the business. You need to stay focused on your thing over here. Get out of our way. That's not your lane." You get to work on anything. And I think, again, freedom to create something that you may not see there already. We don't have as many of those legacy kind of things that weigh us down, because we can move quickly and we're able to kind of go forward. There are obviously challenges of that too, but I love the freedom to create.
Yeah, I love that. That is one of the reasons I am in, real estate, and obviously owning my own business. So couldn't agree more. It's been a weird year, man. Been kind of crazy. So yeah, keeping up to date on the current trends and opportunities is always a challenge. So tell me how you guys have overcome this year.
Other than just feel like I spend a concerted number of hours every day reading, and evenings and everything else, weekends, whatever else it is. I mean, there's kind of what you can get from reading, which I think has great value. I mean, I don't want to ever understate that. but there's also kind of beyond that, the knowledge that comes from kind of a network and maintaining a network. I mean, I know it's been weird for you guys as well, but you have to have a lot of phone conversations, a lot of emails, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of just being out there. And that used to be done in person. I mean, I used to have, 5, 6 coffees or lunches with people a day, happy
Yep.
hours, whatever else it is. All of that kind of roughly in early March was taken away from us collectively, obviously.
Yeah.
And so I think we've all had to kind of adjust, and we've had to do more things like this. And I think, going through my call list, I've probably been more active and in some ways more efficient with keeping up with a larger network of people. But then also on the other hand, digging in deeper to the areas that I really care about in terms of verticals. I mean,
Yeah.
whether it's deals in the distress space, whether it's deals that are coming out, land that might be available, and just generally what people feel about it. So I think 2 things. For me, I like to talk to really smart people every day,
Yep.
and I like to talk to really normal people every day. What I mean by that is there's a bias one way or the other. If you're only talking to experts, you have a really flawed view of things. But if you're only talking to everyday people, you're missing sometimes the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So I love taking an Uber and having a 20-minute conversation with an Uber driver that has no idea what I do for a living, and just saying, okay, how does this perception, what's going on? Where do they see the world going? And what
Yeah.
are the things they're managing?
I like that. That's a pretty cool perspective, man. I've never really put words to that, but that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you want to get a well-rounded view of what's going on, because
Absolutely, yeah.
you and I, we are always, diving into data and talking to people who are involved in real estate, but really, who are the the end users of ours? It's the everyday person that doesn't know anything about real estate, and they're renting or they're buying, and you got to have a feel for that.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
not going to have economists or PhDs as your renters exclusively, right? So they don't care
No.
about cap rate; they care about the experience, and understanding the consumer fears, aspirations, all those things are very powerful.
So, Andy, I was excited to ask you this question. What's the best advice that you've ever received as an investor and a business owner?
That's a tough one to kind of narrow down. I think, like yourself, I'm definitely a practitioner of stoicism and some of the old school guys when it comes
Oh
to that. I
yeah.
appreciate all the writings of the Ryan Holidays and guys like that. I think are a constant kind of companion, if you will. I think for me, probably it comes back to this idea of everything in business, everything in kind of partnerships, whatever else it is kind of self-awareness and self-management.
Mm,
And again, I think you're a great practitioner of that and an advocate for people kind of taking ownership of their own lives.
absolutely.
But you own the end result, good or bad.
Yeah.
So at some level, especially when you're a creator, there's no one to pass the buck to. It is what it is. And
Yeah.
it's like, do things suck right now? Do I wish that there wasn't a pandemic? Maybe, but maybe this is actually the thing that like I needed or we needed or whatever else it is. I mean,
Sure.
there's no point in kind of spouting about what it could be or would be. It's what is it, and what am I going to do today? And so I think that very practical approach of just waking up and saying, okay, this is the world I live in, and it's different than it was 6 months or a year ago. But okay, who am I going to complain to about it? Everybody else's world is different too.
Absolutely, man. I have a little bit of a bro crush on Ryan Holiday right now because of
Yeah,
how
great.
awesome his content is. I listen to the Daily Stoic podcast every single day. I just realized today that he now has a Daily Dad podcast I was not aware of.
There you
So I'm
go.
on the Daily Dad podcast. The one thing I can't really get my head wrapped around, but I respect him for, is, man, he really crushes on Donald Trump. And that's fine. But man, I mean, he does not care. He's probably got 1 million people, on his newsletter. And I mean, he just goes after him, man. And
Yep.
I'm like, wow. I've always tried not to polarize one group or the other and tried to kind of stay in my lane because I'm not a politician and I don't advocate for one side or the other. But man, he really just kind of goes in one direction. But I definitely have a bro crush on him. I'm excited about his new book, and I'm glad that you mentioned him. Ryan Holiday is a beast, man.
No doubt. Good
So,
Austin Texas resident.
yeah, well, that'll be a whole nother. Yeah, let's talk about that though. October. Obviously in the commercial real estate world, election years typically there's a lot of money made in election years because some folks are kind of taking them off when it becomes to commercial real estate. Are you guys seeing any opportunities because of COVID, because it's an election year right now?
Yeah, so a couple things. I think I have conversations every single week around kind of what's happened in the economy because of COVID, and when is the distressed debt market going to actually materialize? And we have
Absolutely.
not seen it at all. I mean, I've had some of what I think are the most absurd Alice in Wonderland conversations with people who are selling assets that are like, well, I don't know why it would be worth any less. And I'm like, than it was a year ago. I mean, like at some level, the pricing has not adjusted in a sane way in any way. So we think the pain has not been felt, obviously, across the board in the same way. Part of that is because of the stimulus. Part of that is because I think, necessarily or not, we've put a lot of money in people's pockets. Rent rolls are still continuing to perform, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, for us, we're looking at it and seeing, okay, where will the distressed debt market occur? It'll occur where lenders start to put pressure.
Yep.
Just as I'm spouting this off. I'm not even necessarily making a play, so I'm not a financial advisor by any means. But I think the hotel space, the hospitality specifically, will be one that will actually feel the pain. And if there's any specific sector of real estate that feels it like it did in '08, I think it'll be hospitality. And I think it will be within the next 3 to 6 months. It'll start to happen. You'll start to see banks just kind of start calling, start foreclosing process. Sorry, I know you're not open, but now you're not up to, whatever you need to be up to, but we're going to still start to take this asset back. And I think at that point, there will be opportunities that materialize. For us, we're a developer. We like to create, Class A assets. So for us, it's always land acquisition, and we're always looking at kind of building a pipeline and figuring out where we can potentially buy land and get a value, because we're not afraid of where the world's going to look 2 years from now or 2.5 years from now when some of these assets actually come online to be rented up. So, keeping your eyes open. I think staying on the sidelines is typically, I'll say, a mistake, but I also have a bias toward action. So I understand that isn't going to be agreed upon by everybody in that regard. We're big believers in Main Street. We're big believers in people being involved in real estate and intangible assets. And, we think that will, in the end, be a beneficial thing. But I also can't look at someone who made, 250% on Tesla this year and say they're an idiot because they made 250% on Tesla and I didn't.
Exactly. Yeah. It's really interesting. I follow an economist. I think his name's Elliot Eisenberg or something along those lines, but he sends a quick, snippet every single day about the economy. One of his points, and one of the ones I heard Victor Minaj talking about, was the hotel industry and how almost like 45 to 50% of the CMBS backed loans in the hospitality space are in default 60 to 90 days. And I'm like, wow, that is a big opportunity. And somebody was coming at Victor saying, hey, let's go build this new hotel. He's like, why would I go build a new hotel when, 50% of the loans are in default? I can just wait and maybe pick those up. That's a very interesting asset class right now. And, I obviously have 2 hotels here in Kansas City. I'm not feeling the pain as much as, big hoteliers, but, it was one that's vulnerable that I was not aware of because of, a pandemic like we're going through.
Yeah, new construction is pretty much ground to a halt unless they're so far along that they just have to complete it.
Right.
We're seeing still some hotel activity in mixed use projects though. So that's one of the areas that we kind of jump in and say, okay, if there is a hotel site that was already going to happen, can we build 200 or 300 apartments alongside that, or kind of repurpose some of the land along the way? So we like that. I mean, I think, people can be flexible and agile as to the usage. We still feel really strongly about apartments and townhomes and residential communities. I think at the end of the day, if you're anything like me for the last 6 months, I think the only thing I've spent money on is, rent and groceries. So if it isn't, Amazon or Whole Foods getting my money, it's, it's going to be the landlord.
Right.
So consequently, people take care of business when it kind of comes back to that hierarchy of need of saying, okay, I'm not going to give up the place that I live, because that's also where I work now and also where my whole life is happening at potentially. Whereas, I don't know, I would want to be in retail and office quite as much.
Sure.
Obviously, hospitality is tough. But yeah, we still feel very, very good about the residential side of the thing. And the reality is there's millions fewer doors than there needs to be or should be. I think, our point of view is that we overreacted from '08. We've just kind of slowed down construction. And the reality is, again, there's new people coming in line who are forming their own households, and they may not buy a house as fast as we thought they would have a couple years ago, but they're going to still need to kind of rent their own place and have a space that they feel good about.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Hey, this is a really social show. This is your opportunity to promote another badass person to the Live Free Investors podcast. So what other successful investor, business owner, entrepreneur, anybody that you think would be a good fit, should be on the Live Free Investors podcast?
So I put thought into this because I knew this question was coming. So I'll give you one from Kansas City and my roots, and I'll give you one from Florida.
Okay.
And where I've been for the last year. So Alex Upperman in Kansas City, Missouri is probably the smartest, most badass guy that I know there. Love him to death. Like 9 minutes won't be enough to talk to him for sure. But just what he's done in real estate in the last few years with like no real background in it, no real kind of, looking at it. So I think he brought fresh eyes to the space. And then I'll give you one in Orlando, Florida that I really have gotten to know and appreciate over the last couple of years. A guy named Jeff Reeder, who
Okay.
I can definitely connect you with, but he runs a company called Reeder Communities, and they do a lot of horizontal development throughout the state of Florida and throughout the country, actually. But very, very great second generation real estate guy who has a lot going on, just like all of us.
Sure. Well, I know Alex well, and I will reach back out to him and make sure to get him on the podcast. His growth has been awesome to watch, and just a good person. And we'll rely on you to get me an introduction to Jeff for sure whenever this comes out. Okay, this is the most important question of the podcast, one that I didn't really brief you for, but maybe you've heard me ask other people. What is your best way that you live free on a regular basis, whether that be financially, personally, emotionally, however you want to take it, man? How do you live free?
I think there's a component of this that I would say you have to untether or learn to untether as you get older from other people's expectations. It's really hard for me personally as well. I mean, I don't always come across as this, but I think we all naturally, there's that critique of you're a people pleaser. Well, everyone to a degree is a people pleaser and probably should be. You don't want to completely lose that because you might just become, I have to be careful. You're allowed to cuss on your show, but I'm not. But point being, there's that sense of just like untethering, like, okay, what do I want to be? What do other people want me to be? What is, society, all the influences or institutions in my life? And in the end, what do I actually want to do here? What am I willing to invest in? And I think that, when you find that, I find myself being able to work overly hard at it and overly long at it without feeling the same pain as showing up and kind of mailing it in type of a job that I don't care about as much. So I think the freedom to work your ass off, you already used that one, so I know it's safe. Try not to drop any other bombs here. But that freedom to do that because you want to do that, because you believe in what you're building, because you get to create and you get an energy from that. But you also then have to untether yourself from all the other kind of stuff that we all grow up with. And it's natural. Everybody has that. I mean, there's no escape from that in some regard. And I think that appreciation of that going forward is what gives you the chance to kind of be more free than you were yesterday, and hopefully more free the next day and the day after. And I think to me, it's a progression of kind of the spectrum moving forward, where I'm never going to be totally free probably, but I like to think that I'm freer than I was. And I like to think that I'm going to be freer than my parents were or my grandparents were or whoever else it is. So I think as long as we kind of look at it and say, we are progressing in some way, individually or collectively, there's value in that. And I think there's a satisfaction in that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And, the biggest piece of untethering, and this is a big piece of stoicism that I've been diving back into. When you get to a certain level as a business owner, as just a person that's adding value out there, more people are going to latch on, and they're going to, they're going to start trying to, siphon your time, your energy, and you got to be really, really careful about that. And one part of that is putting yourself around the right people. But the second is just realizing that's going to happen, and not having your self-worth tied to what other people think about you is really, really important. So thank you for that. I got a bonus question for you, man.
Oh, wow. Okay. Excellent.
Yeah. This is a fun one because we have a few minutes left. I stopped the 9-minute thing because I felt like I was pressuring people. And whenever the vibe was going really well, I just want to continue going. So
I talk fast anyway, so it's no problem.
It's good. We're moving along well. But this is a question from my good buddy Tim Ferriss that one day will be on this show. Just wait.
Yes,
I'll get him on. But this is a question from the Tribe of Mentors book that he put out. Yep. And one that I love because I love to put people up on game is what it's called. So trying to help people elevate. So what purchase of $100 or less has positively impacted your life in the last 6 months?
Wow. $100 or less. I probably spent way over $100 on Audible during the course of this whole thing. I probably don't want to know how much I've spent on it. I love podcasts, obviously, but I think there is a component of, as I get older and busier, it's harder for me to sit down and devour a 400 or 500 page type book.
Sure.
But for whatever reason, I can just kind of crank through them on Audible. So I'll have to go with probably my audible.com membership.
Love it.
You should come as a sponsor to the show, by the way. That
I
would be
should.
excellent as well.
Yes.
But no, $100 or less, that's probably it. Because otherwise, the only thing I spend $100 on or less is probably like coffee. A lot of coffee,
I just ordered my own cold brew machine for my house, which I'm really.
There you go. You'll never have to go out. You can have several more years of quarantine.
You guys don't need it there at WeWork. You got that on tap. So
we do, yes, assuming that the WeWork stays open. So we're at different points considered the epicenter of everything bad happening in the world. But it's doable.
Yeah, spoken like a true investor, man. Andy, if somebody wants to follow your content, learn more about what you're doing, direct them to the right spot.
Yeah, probably just even email. So we do email newsletter from time to time as well. So my email is actually andy@elexcapital.com. So I'm sure you can link to that or whatever else.
Sure.
Shoot me a note. We tend to engage on a rather personal level because of the fact that we really don't do broad-based syndications as much anymore. We work a lot more now with either people who are syndicators themselves who are bringing a group of investors to the table, or family offices or private equity groups or whatever else it might be. But yeah, I think that's probably the easiest in that regard.
Awesome.
I'm not as good on social as I should be probably, but very much, again, enjoy consuming your podcast and all of your LinkedIn content. LinkedIn is also a really good, easy way. I am on LinkedIn a lot, so I would say that would be the easiest one on the social side. And LinkedIn and email.
Perfect. Well, we'll also link to your website as well.
Sounds
Andy,
good.
I really appreciate it. Man, this is Logan Freeman with the Live Free Investors Podcast, where investors and business owners share investment advice so you too can live free. For more insights and ideas on how you can live free, connect and message with myself and Andy Talbert on LinkedIn today. Andy, thanks for joining us today, man.
Pleasure's mine.
Until next time, live free.